You're standing in the kitchen at midnight, making tomorrow's lunch for someone who forgot to ask. Again. Your body aches, your mind screams for rest, but your hands keep moving. Because this is what you do. This is who you are. The person who gives. The person who helps. The person who never says no. And somewhere in the quiet darkness, a small voice asks, when did kindness become a cage? There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from endless giving. It's not the tiredness you feel after a long day. It's deeper. It lives in your bones. It's the weight of performing care while your own needs scream in the silence. You've been told your whole life that this is virtue. That selflessness is the highest form of goodness. That to put others first is to be truly moral. But no one mentions what happens when others first becomes you never. This isn't about ordinary kindness. It's about something else entirely. Something that wears the mask of generosity but operates from a place of terror. Psychologists have a name for what you're experiencing. They call it the fawn response. It's a trauma adaptation where instead of fighting or fleeing danger, you appease it. You make yourself useful. You become indispensable. You learn that your safety depends on how much you can give. This isn't generosity. It's survival dressed up as virtue. The fawn response sits alongside fight, flight, and freeze as the fourth trauma reaction. Research shows that this pattern fundamentally alters personality traits, increasing emotional sensitivity, agreeableness, and the overwhelming need to manage other people's emotional states. Think about the child you were. Picture yourself at 7 years old, learning to read the room before you entered it. Learning to assess your parents' mood from the sound of their footsteps. Learning that your needs were negotiable, but their comfort was sacred. Maybe you grew up in a home where love felt conditional. Where attention was currency you had to earn. Where being good meant being quiet, helpful, invisible unless needed. Or maybe the trauma was more overt. Neglect, abuse, chaos that taught you the only control you had was in managing other people's reactions to you. Children in these environments develop what researchers call parentification. You became the emotional caretaker of adults who should have been caring for you. You learned to prioritize their needs because your survival depended on keeping them stable, keeping them happy, keeping them from turning their pain towards you. And here's what no one tells you. That child made the smartest choice available. Fawning worked. It kept you safer. It got you the scraps of love and attention you desperately needed. But the cost of that survival strategy is still being paid in your adult body today. Your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, became hyperactive. It's constantly scanning for danger, for disapproval, for any sign that someone might withdraw their affection. This isn't just theory. It's the knot in your stomach when someone's tone shifts. It's the way your chest tightens when you sense disappointment. Your nervous system learned to find safety not in rest, but in usefulness. Researchers studying childhood trauma have found that early relational trauma fundamentally reshapes how the nervous system develops. Your baseline state isn't calm, it's vigilant. Always monitoring. Always adjusting. Always performing. The stress hormone cortisol becomes chronically elevated. Your body exists in a state of low-grade emergency, waiting for the next crisis where your value will be tested. And when you finally stop moving, stop giving, stop performing, the anxiety floods in. Because stillness feels dangerous when your worth is tied to your output. This is how trauma becomes biology. How childhood survival becomes adult imprisonment. In your relationships, you disappear. Not physically, but psychologically. Your partner asks where you want to eat and you genuinely don't know anymore. You've spent so long prioritizing others' preferences that your own desires have atrophied. You say, "I don't care," when you do care. You say whatever you want when you want something specific. You've learned that having needs creates conflict, and conflict threatens connection. Think about the last time someone asked what you needed. Did you deflect? Did you minimize? Did you turn it back to them? At work, you're the one who stays late, takes on extra projects, volunteers for tasks no one else wants. Your manager knows you'll say yes, so they keep asking. Your boundaries are so porous that others don't even realize they're crossing them, because you never signal discomfort. You're drowning in commitments you resented the moment you agreed to them, but saying no feels like betrayal. In friendships, you're the emotional support system everyone relies on. You show up for their crises. You remember their birthdays. You check in when they're struggling. But when you're falling apart, you go silent. You handle it alone. Because asking for help feels like imposing, and imposing means you might be too much, and being too much means abandonment. Picture this moment. You're exhausted. Someone asks for another favor. Every cell in your body screams no. But you hear yourself say yes. And the relief on their face feels like survival. Inside, there's a constant calculus running. How much do I need to give to be valued? How useful do I need to be kept? The thought of someone being disappointed in you creates a physical response. Panic, shame, desperate need to fix it immediately. You've become an expert at reading micro-expressions, at sensing shifts in energy, at knowing what someone needs before they ask. But here's what no one mentions. That hypervigilance is exhausting. The 1,000 small betrayals of yourself accumulate. Each time you said, "I'm fine," when you weren't. Each time you swallowed your anger to keep the peace. Each time you gave from an empty tank and smiled through it. The fawn response doesn't create relationships. It creates performances. And you're exhausted from being on stage. Here's the reframe that changes everything. The fawn response is not weakness. It's sophisticated intelligence developed under impossible circumstances. That child who learned to appease, to anticipate, to dissolve their own needs, that child was brilliant. That child survived. But what kept you safe then keeps you imprisoned now. The protection became the prison. The nervous system that learned to find safety and usefulness now experiences rest as danger. Carl Jung wrote about shadow work, the process of reclaiming the parts of yourself you had to disown. For fawners, the shadow holds your anger, your selfishness, your right to take up space. Every time you said yes when you meant no, you sent a piece of yourself into exile. Recovery means bringing those pieces home. This isn't about becoming selfish. It's about learning that self-preservation and selfishness are not the same thing. The first step isn't setting boundaries. It's seeing what actually happened. Recognition before reconstruction. Sit with this truth. You learned to fawn because the adults around you failed to create safety. Your needs weren't too much. They were normal. But they were treated as inconvenient. So you learned to make yourself convenient by having none. You weren't born believing you had to earn love. You were taught it. The child who learned to disappear needs to hear something now. That child, you, deserved to have needs. Deserved to be protected instead of being the protector. Deserved care that didn't require performance. You weren't the problem. The environment was. Now comes the neurobiological truth that changes everything. Your brain can rewire. Neuroplasticity means the patterns etched by trauma can be rewritten. Every time you say no and survive the discomfort, you're building new neural pathways. Every time you voice a need and aren't abandoned, you're teaching your nervous system a different story. Start with somatic practices. Your true answer lives in your body before it reaches your mind. Learn to notice the physical sensation that precedes automatic yes. The tightness in your throat. The collapse in your chest. The way your body contracts before your mind even registers someone wants something from you. Practice tolerating the discomfort of healthy conflict. This is crucial. Your nervous system believes that disagreement equals danger. So start small. Disagree about something minor. Let someone be slightly disappointed. Notice that you survive it. Rebuild connection to your own preferences. What do you actually want? The answer might not come immediately. Those neural pathways have been dormant for years. But start asking. What do I want for dinner? How do I want to spend Saturday? What do I need right now? Set boundaries, but understand this. The first 100 boundaries will feel like betrayal. Your nervous system will scream that you're being selfish, cruel, too much. That's the fawn response fighting for its survival. Thank it for protecting you once, then do the boundary anyway. Work with trauma-informed therapists who understand that your people-pleasing isn't a personality flaw. It's a survival adaptation that needs compassionate unwinding. Internal family systems therapy can help you dialogue with the parts of you that learn to fawn, understanding their protective role before asking them to step back. The goal isn't to stop being kind. It's to build kindness that comes from choice, not compulsion. From fullness, not fear. You've spent years believing your worth was earned through service, measured by how much you could endure, forgive, provide. You became an emotional ATM that never displayed insufficient funds until you collapsed entirely. But here's what's true. Your worth is intrinsic. It existed before you learned to perform it. It remains even when you're not useful. The kindness you've given to everyone else, you're allowed to turn some of that toward yourself. This isn't about becoming hard. It's about becoming whole. It's about learning that you can be generous from a place of abundance, instead of giving from depletion. That true connection doesn't require self-erasure. That the people worth keeping will love you more when you show them who you actually are. The hidden cost of kindness was you. Your needs. Your voice. Your right to exist without apology. But you're not paying that cost anymore. You're reclaiming it.